Okay, there we go. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for taking your time out of your busy afternoon to take a listen to this. I think we have something that is very time crucial at this point. It seems like all the kids are going back to school, whether it be elementary school, high school, college, or whatever. It's all time to start. In fact, I was coming back Monday to the office this Monday and noticed the cars turning into the middle school that I passed by, and doggone if the teachers weren't all full in the parking lot. So I guess classes are right behind. But what we want to talk about is leaving a legacy for your children and or grandchildren. Now, I'm going to speak and I'm going to use the terms parent and grandparent somewhat interchangeably because either can fund this, but it might be more for a grandparent than a parent because grandparents typically have a little bit more spendable income than do the young families. But now, like I said, it's on everybody's mind with the kids going back to school. They're thinking about what they're going to do in college and how they're going to prepare these young people to become adults in society. So, what we want to do is, I want to challenge you how you think about children's insurance. And hopefully, when we get through this, you'll have a paradigm shift and look at it a little bit differently. So, with that, we're going to get started. And let's see. So, what I have done, this is what we typically see when somebody wants to buy something on a child. It's a 1 year old child. They say, hey, let me just buy a minimal policy. Most policies now are probably a $50,000 minimum face size. So I just did a $50,000 whole life. This is with Mass Mutual. Again, I want to reiterate that we are company agnostic. We don't care just as long as you do the business with, excuse me, with Brokerhouse. Whether it goes to Mass or Penn or whoever, it's the same to us, pretty much. So, but if you look at this, the premium for $50,000 is $347 a year. Let's just say $30 a month, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that after 20 years, you paid in almost $7,000 a premium and the cash value is $5,300. So, like I said, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, hey, was not a good investment from a financial viewpoint. But when we're talking about the children, lots of times it's more emotional than it is financial. You want to have a little life insurance on that child in case something happens. And I understand that. Whether it's buy a whole life policy, we can debate that, but there's nobody out there that I'm aware of that will sell a term policy to a child. But anyway, this is not to me a good financial decision because if you just bury the $347 a year in the backyard for 20 years, you'd have more than the life insurance policy. And people say, well, I want to be sure that that the child will have something when they get older. Fact is, very few people, very few kids are going to be uninsurable when they get to 21. Just thoughts there. And if something were to happen to that child, certainly it's an emotional loss, but it's probably not a financial loss. Again, you're talking about small premiums when you're talking about children. If you wanted to put aside more money, and in this case, I went to $500 a month, but look what it does to the death benefit. The death benefit is $1.4 million. Now, this is just your base whole life 100 contract. There's not going to be many underwriters that are going to be comfortable financially underwriting a child for $1.4 million of coverage. So that's another hurdle that you see. But when you get into the economies of scale, those policy fees no longer are a large portion of the premium. And now look, you actually have positive return out there at 20 years. 152,000 versus 120,000 a premium. Again, that's just the first one was such that the expenses in the policy are a large portion of the premium. We reduce that when we go to larger face amounts and larger premiums. But again, I want to challenge what you're thinking on these policies. So let's look and say if you went to a UL or an IUL policy, again, using Securian in this example, because with the IULs, you can drive the death benefit down to a more manageable amount. So you can drive that death benefit down to $277,000. I'm sorry, I think it's 272. It's an increasing death benefit. So at the end of the first year, the death benefit's 277. But you're still getting that $5,000 or $500 a month into the contract. Based on the current yield at 6.59%, that's $218,000 of cash out there 20 years from now. We all know with IULs that they're able to illustrate a little higher interest rate than whole life policies. Whether or not they perform is up to debate, but over the long period of time, theoretically, the IULs will outperform the whole life just because of the difference in investments underlying the policy. So I want to look at that and look at the expenses inside this policy. Again, this is Securian's policy, but if you look at these expenses for IULs, they're almost all the same in the way that they are designed. The first one is a policy or a premium charge. This one is 6.5% interest. You can find them anywhere between 4 and probably 10 or 12% interest. The next one is the cost of the insurance. So you're providing $272,000 of insurance on this 1-year-old, costs $43 for the year. As you can see, it's $292 over a 10-year period. The next one is a policy issue charge. That's usually a per thousand basis. And really, quite frankly, that's where the agent gets paid their commission is out of this column. And then there's a policy fee of $60. Okay. So total expenses over that 15-year period, if you add those up, it's about $10,000 out of $90,000 of premium, or about 10% expense for the policy. Okay. Now, I want to go, the cash value in 20 years, we noted, was $218,000. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what the cash value would be is if instead of insuring a 1-year-old, we insured the 30-year-old father? Who thinks the cash value in 20 years would be more? Anybody? Who thinks it'll be?
Yes, I do. I do.
You do. You think it'll be more. Okay.
Yep.
Anybody think that it will be 10 or 20% less than insuring a child? Oh, okay, Chris. Well, here's what it looks like. It's $217,356. That's within $1,000 insuring a 30-year-old versus insuring the 1-year-old. The reason that is we dropped the death benefit. The death benefit is now $140,000 instead of $272,000. So yes, the per thousand cost for a 30-year-old is more than the per thousand cost of a 1-year-old, but we don't have to write as much insurance on the 30-year-old as we do the 1-year-old. So those balance out. You can put a female in here. The female 30-year-old is going to be just about the same amount of cash value in 20 years. Okay. So if I look at the expenses, again, the premium charge is the same. The policy issue charge was $8 a year more. The additional charge of the policy fee is the same. The cost of the insurance, minimum. I think I looked at it over 15 years. The difference in the cost of insurance was $700. So if we go back and think about the difference between a financial and emotional loss, the family is going to be in a much bigger problem if something happens to the 30-year-old than the 1-year-old. And if the cash value is the same, which is our goal, it's more cash value driven than death benefit driven, I would suggest we'd be better off insuring the parent rather than the child. Everybody follow that logic? Okay. So that was my point. A little bit of a paradigm shift is it's fine. And you can find some of these policies that have children's insurance riders that guarantees the insurability of that child when they get to be 23. So that's a possibility just to add the rider. This also helps you as an advisor because guess what? If you're working with the grandparent, now you got to talk to the parent, the 30-year-old, and maybe you make a $1 million or $2 million term sale to the 30-year-old. Say, Johnny, would you like to have a $2 million term policy for at 30 years old? It's probably $50 a month. I don't know how it's cheap, but I don't know what it is. So that gives you exposure to the second and third generations of your clients. And sometimes we have problems as advisors getting down through the generations of a family. Now, so what can we do with this $500 a month that we convince John Sr. to put on Johnny for the benefit of little Johnny? So I'm calling them all. So I got John is the grandparent, Johnny is the son, and little Johnny is the grandchild. So John is going to put aside $500 a month in this contract. It's going to insure Johnny, and it's really going to be for the benefit of little Johnny. Because when little Johnny gets to be 18 years old and goes off to college, he gets $10,000 a year to supplement the education fund. The cash value prior to this was $162,000. I think if we look on the next slide, after he takes 4 years of $10,000, he's still going to have $160,000 of cash value in the policy. Now, one of the advantages to me is that Grandpa John controls this. They're the owner of the policy. They have a 529 plan. You got to use that for education. You don't necessarily have to use this for education. You can do whatever you want to with this money that they've set aside. And if we look, again, here's the fourth year of $10,000. When Johnny, the son, is 55 years old, you got almost $250,000 of cash value and a $368,000 death benefit, no more premiums. Well, guess what? Little Johnny now is 30 years old, and he comes to Dad and says, Dad, I got this great house I want to buy. I need $50,000 for a down payment. Where can I get that money? Well, Johnny, the child, John has been working his whole life, and he doesn't have $50,000 to give little Johnny, but guess what? You can take it out of this policy when in year 29, and the cash value goes down a little bit, but in a couple of years, it's back up where it was. So now this policy has funded little Johnny's college education for 4 years. Let's hope he gets out of school in 4 years. And then when he's 30 years old, he's ready to get married, buy a house, whatever it is. Here's $50,000 to help him on his way. Do you have any questions about that? Okay. Well, things are good for John, and little Johnny's now Guess what? He's going to have a sister. 2 years later, little Johnny has a sister, little Susie. So now in this year, so he has 2 years. Johnny's off to school by himself for 2 years. Then Susie joins him in year 3. So now we get $20,000 out of the policy. The 4th year, both of them are still in school, $20,000 out of the policy. 2 more 10 years for the last 2 years of Susie. Then, let me see if I can go back. Hold on a second. I always have trouble going backwards. I apologize. Well, okay, so here we got 50,000 year 29 and 50,000 in year 30 or 35 when Susie is now 30 years old. And you still, when you get all that done, and Johnny, not John Sr., but Johnny, the child is 65 years old. He's got $200,000 of cash in the policy and a death benefit of $331,000. If you really want to get aggressive, you can actually turn that into retirement income for Johnny at that point in time. Probably be able to get about $12,000 to $15,000 a year out of the policy for the next 15 years. So it's funded college education, funded a new home or a wedding, and potentially could provide retirement income, all for that $5,000 or $500 a month for the first 17 years. So the total outlay is about $100,000, and look at all that you've gotten out of it. You've gotten $178,000 in hand, and you still have $250,000 of cash value. Now, let's talk about why it works. So if we look, when Johnny is 60 years old and the policy, after taking all that money out, has $170,000 of cash value, basically. It earns interest, earns $13,000 worth of interest. If he had earned that $13,000 worth of interest in a taxable investment, let's say at 39%, he'd have paid Uncle Sam $5,000 in taxes. If you look at the cost to carry the policy, it's $349 for the insurance and a $60 policy fee for $409. So, Chris, you'd raise your hand and said it was expensive, so I'm going to pick on you a little bit. Would this be a good deal after you've gotten all this money? Instead of paying Uncle Sam $5,000 a year in taxes, you're paying the insurance company $400 for $300,000 of life insurance. Would you do that deal? So, to me, this is what we need to think about, a paradigm shift for people to start putting money aside for their grandchildren at a young age. Now, I chose age 1. You could do 4, 6, whatever. May not work quite as well at 4 or 6, but it's still going to work similarly, okay? So if we look in summary, life insurance is still a protection product. And yes, the loss of a child would be an emotional loss, but it's not the financial loss if something happened to one of the parents. So why don't we insure the parent rather than the child? It allows the guideline single premiums and MEC limits allows to put in more premiums per dollar on a coverage for a 30-year-old than they do a 1-year-old. Okay. And we showed you the cost between a 1-year-old policy and a policy on a 30-year-old is almost the same. I mean, it's negligibly different. And what happens if they have multiple children? If you had multiple 1 year olds that you're insuring, you'd be having that policy issue charge for every one of those policies, where you combine them all in one policy if you insure one of the children, one of the second generation, I guess I should say. Try to keep that straight. Now, again, this could be funded by grandparents, be funded by parents, whoever, but the object is to get the money set aside for the benefit of that young person because they've got nothing but time, and we all know the effect of compound interest. Because we get out here in these later years, again, you're paying $200-300 a year for the insurance. That's a lot less than the taxes on the interest credits of on $200,000 of value. Excuse me. So with that, I will stop and see if we have any questions. Okay. And I do want to say that like this concept is going to work regardless of the carrier. I could have chosen Pacific Life, I could have chosen Lincoln, pretty much any of them. Now, how it's truly going to perform, we all know that's going to be debatable over time, but the concept is still valid. There are companies that I like the design on a little bit better than others, but I think that this performance is going to be something that you can stand behind. And like I said, it's going to expose you to the second and third generations of families. All right. Vicki, you get the gold medal for saying it wouldn't be any difference in the values between insuring a 1 year old and a 30-year-old. All right.
Do.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense as far as when you were talking about, you sell all these individual policies and you don't think about all the charges for the issue in each of the policy issue. So when you group it together, like you said, and you have riders on there, then it does save the client more money.
It is. And I think again, it's to me, it's better than the 529 because you're not limited on that. And if
Yeah.
you have multiple children, you can choose. I mean, let's be frank. There are families where some children are successful and others struggle. And you treating them equal doesn't mean dividing assets and estates 3 or 4 square. It means, responding to each other's personal needs.
Yeah, it does in the 529 plan, or I live in Texas. They used to have the Tomorrow Fund, and they have something else. You have to use it specifically. They have to go to college. I don't think you can pull it out. Just like you said, if you say they want to go to, you want them to go somewhere else, and they don't go to college, which is could be very possible. You can pull out the money out of these and not use it for college. Something else, like you said, maybe they want to buy a house, or you want to pay for a wedding.
But you can they change some of the rules there. You can use it. It's up to I think 20 grand. You can be converted to earn income to Roth IRA, and I believe you can use up to 20 grand for private schools per year.
Yeah, it
So
must have
you can't.
changed because I know 20 years ago I looked at it, and
20 years ago, these are all recent changes. Some of these recent changes are all for the big better bill from President Trump. Um, some of
oh,
the bill also changed during his last term too. Some of the new changes this year, so you can look into that. But there are some more powerful ways you can convert your 529 plan into other things. One of them right now, you have to earn income dollar for dollar and can roll that into a Roth IRA. So if you have like overfunded a 529 plan and the child turns 18 and they start earning $5,000 a year, you can start converting 5,000 or 80,000 or 10,000 up to get to 20 into a Roth IRA as soon as you possibly have earned income.
okay, good to know because I didn't know the rules. And
And then,
you're cutting out a little bit on your when you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry,
That's
You know,
okay.
internet issues.
one
Hook
other
it up,
thing
just
too,
basically.
but it also goes back to control. When you do the 529 plan, you lose a little bit of grandparents lose a little control over the money. They don't
True.
lose any control over the money here.
Right.
Uh, so I think is one of the benefits for them. You get the same tax deferred growth, and then you actually get a tax-free death benefit somewhere down the road when the middle generation passes away.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do on your 529 plan, whatever per dollar you put in, you can take out. So if you put in like let's just say $100,000 into a plan over a period of time, you can take out that 100,000 and leave the earned money in there, and you can without any tax consequences on it as well.
Yeah, and the other thing, not everybody on this call is securities licensed and can't sell the 529 plan.
I am not telling anybody to sell a 529 plan. I'm just telling you what the rules are, just for
Yeah.
clarity. Just
Okay.
for
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah.
Read the big better bill plan. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Ralph had a question too. He
Yeah,
said, "What
I
about the
see
increase in
that about
cost?"
the increase
Yeah.
in cost of insurance in later years. That's a good question, Rob. One of the things, if you go back and look at it, the death benefit minus the cash value is not going to be very large. So that cost of insurance is not going to get outrageously expensive like it would be if you were buying it for death benefit. And also, you can change the death benefit option from an increasing death benefit to level, and that would also save some money on the cost of insurance. So there's some ways that you can manage that when you get out to be 75 or 80, but hopefully the again we kept the insurance cost as little as possible. That answer okay, thank you. Um, so again, to me, this is a good way to do it. And what we've done, we've got some customizable marketing pieces we now have up on the screen. The one on the left here is if you want to just send something out individually. The one on the right is the same thing, but it has the ability to do a webinar, then you can register and all. Christy handles that. So if you want to do this, put it out on your Facebook or your social media, whatever you want to do, you talk to Christy about that, and we can get that piece for you. So we've gone a little further this time, not only giving you some ideas on how to use it, now we want to give you a marketing piece to get you started in doing this. Now, with that said, I want to say if you get somebody to put in $5,000 or $6,000 a year, probably not all of that is commissionable. The target premium is going to be much less than the $6,000 a year. Okay, so don't expect you're going to be making, $6,000 or whatever on this sale. It's much more modest than that. Okay. So if you have more, there are contact information either to David or to me. Christy is C Macris, Macris. That's CMACRIS at brokerhouseins.com. And the good thing is now that a lot of this can be done with electronic applications too. So hopefully you can get out there and people are thinking about how to fund this with their kids going back to school, and college education is on the minds of a lot of people. Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you for attending. This is recorded, so if you want to see a copy of the recording, Christy will have that ready, and she and David can send it out to you. Again, thanks for taking your time this afternoon. Bye-bye.